So the power is in the attention. The power is in our energy, and our energy is our attention, all right? So when we're not attentive and we're not focused and we're not, you know, paying attention to what we're doing, by default, the computer takes over. So it's like if we're not aware, if we're not actually taking the effort and the focus to pay attention to what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, the computer by default is playing the game for us. Like, okay, the person stepped out, let's have the computer, be the ping pong for a minute, the little paddle. It will move for you, it will make your decisions for you. It's autopilot. And we know this happens because, what happens when we're driving down the road and we're lost in our thoughts and we're like, wow, how did I even get here? I don't know. That's because the computer took over, all right? The ego took over. It's by default. So if you're not in control, that is what is controlling you. Okay, so we have a lot of people who seem to be going through this robotic state of living. It's because essentially, whether their consciousness has left the building or it's trapped, I don't really know, but it's not really, it's like NPC, non-player character. No one is in there. No one's in there. And if they are in there, they're trapped, because we open ourselves up to so much. And sometimes we get possessed by different levels of fear through trauma. So that's, a whole different story. Anyway, so you have love, you have fear, and then you have logic. And logic is unattainable without a balance of love and fear. You can't just get to logic without, the heart and the fear having, their say at the table, because it's like logic is what branches these two together, okay? And so unless these two are working equally, we're going to have an imbalance. Either because when you're too much heart, when your heart is guiding the way too much, I'm not saying don't listen to your heart, but you can't always listen to your heart because you're here in the physical realm, which requires you to essentially be able to discern things, because whether you could be a very loving and spiritual person, the next person could be an animal, all right? Just a basic animal, and he could eat you, essentially, in a metaphysical way, in a physical way. He could kill you, he could rob you, he could do things to you, other things, anything. So it's like if you don't have that instinct, that fear over here that says, hey, something is weird about this person's energy, let me walk away. If your heart wants to go all in, your heart always wants to connect. And it's like, hey, who are you? How are you? I love you. I love everyone, right? That's the heart. The heart loves without restriction. It is the part of us that wants to connect. Now, the fear is what is like, whoa, stop. I want to disconnect. I want my space. I want separation, all right? Because I don't know you, you're different, and in the past, things that are different means death. And I don't want to die. I don't want anything bad to happen. So I'm just going to pull myself away. All right, so you have the love that always wants to connect and the fear that always is disconnected. All right, so you have to be able to look at people. You have to be able to look at life. You have to be able to look at situations and discern. Okay, is this a moment I give my heart, or is this a moment I take a step back and say, you know what? I have boundaries. That's a boundary that I don't necessarily want to cross, because the heart has no boundaries. And that's why when we're in our heart too much, we get used, we get taken advantage of, we get hurt, we get abused. There's a lot of things that happen. And I know this from experience, because as a child, I was just a ball of love. That's all, I just was so loving. And I'm pretty sure that happens through trauma too, a little bit. I don't know for sure. I'll get back to you on that. But I was too loving. I didn't know how to say no to people. I didn't want to hurt people. I would rather myself get hurt than me make someone feel bad or put someone in an uncomfortable position. I would rather really compromise my own values, my own self. And that was terrible. It really hurt me as, a young adult. And it wasn't until, after my third very physically abusive relationship that I had a shift where, okay, I was all heart. I would give and give and give and give and give. I wouldn't take. I wouldn't put anything in. And then when I was, 17, 18, 19, it was 19, I had just experienced this very, very abusive relationship, probably the worst one I had ever been in, which I will eventually tell you guys more about. But after my dog was murdered, I pretty much went like this. So I went, whoosh, and the other side of me completely took over. And I remember, that voice coming in and saying, hey, you can't handle this anymore. Like, you literally cannot handle this. Let me take over from here. I will make sure you never get hurt again. And I was like, all right. So there's love and the fear, and then there's like the person it's like standing out there watching it all happen. And a lot of the times we think that these energies are us when we're just an observer. It's just this part of who we are. We have the love that comes from the limbic system, the compassion center, our mammalian center, and we have the fear that is the reptilian complex. The medulla oblongata is what ensures our survival. And so we're like somewhere else out there watching these functions, and a lot of the times we let them take over. And most of the time it's fear that drives people. So it's like fear is in the driver's seat, and it's controlling what you do, it's controlling what you think, what you feel, everything. You're looking at it through rosy, it's not very rosy, but just glasses of fear. All right. And so how we get this way is from being fed so much fear, trauma, having trauma happen, or seeing fear on the media, just thinking that the world is such a terrible place. All of these contribute to why fear takes over. And so when there's a voice talking in your head, you have to stop and say, whoa, who's talking? All right, who's talking to me right now? And once you can decipher, the love from the fear, then you can discern, okay, this is a situation where I need to love, or this is a situation where I need to take a step back. And not necessarily fear, but fear ensures survival. That's the only reason why we have it. It plays a purpose, it's not pointless. It definitely, for those of us who have been in the game for a long time, we have very ancient lineage. That's because we have really good instincts, okay? Really good fear complex that can really say, hey, like, don't go any further. But what never used to happen, is when fear possesses someone. That's a real dangerous spot to be in, because it's like, fear is not meant to drive. It's just meant to be, a voice in the car. Like, hey, you're going too fast. Maybe slow down. All right, fear. But if fear's driving, man, who knows where you end up? It's, real dangerous. So, all right, so we have love, we have fear, and when they're balanced, then we attain true logic. Other than that, there's tons of voices we hear in our head. All right, this may sound crazy, but we hear each other's voice in our heads. If you have people in the house, maybe you're hearing their thoughts in your head. We hear our ancestors' words in our head, all right? Because nothing dies. Nothing dies. Nothing is lost forever. It all just changes form, and sometimes that form turns into a spirit energetically that hangs around and is like, hey, I'm here to help you, or I'm here to live through you. It's always a little different why ancestors hang around, and that's, something for a different time. But yeah, so it's just like, who's talking in your head? What are they saying? Why are they saying it? Are you listening to a voice that's not you and letting that voice take control? I know a lot of the times fear definitely takes control of me, because it was my default program.